Hello, everyone, and welcome to Friday, the 5th of February, and story time. Now, yesterday, the social worker, Winnie, had come to visit Alfie and his dad, and we just found out that, unbeknownst to Alfie, Dad had fallen out of his wheelchair, and he hadn't told Alfie because he didn't want to worry him, and we're going to find out why he fell out of his chair. I became short of breath, and I just blacked out. I fell out of my wheelchair, smacked straight onto the bathroom floor. I was rushed to hospital in an ambulance. The doctors did a load of tests. Oh, yes? Winnie sounded very worried now. Well, Dad was struggling to find the words. Take your time, Mr. Griffith. Well, the doctors told me my breathing was getting worse and worse and fast. Oh, no, gasped Winnie. The boy could hear his dad crying. It was heartbreaking. Here, Mr. Griffith, take a tissue, said the social worker softly. Alfie took a deep inhalation of breath. Hearing his dad cry made him want to cry, but the proud man was fighting it and sniffing back up the tears. We Griffiths are strong, always have been. I worked down that mine for 20 years, as my dad did before me, and his dad before him. But I'm a very ill man, and my poor little pup, he can't cope all on his own. Very sensible of you, Mr. Griffith, replied Winnie. I am glad you finally decided to call the council. I just wish you had sooner. And remember, I'm here to help you and your son. Alfie stood frozen to the spot. Dad had a habit of keeping bad news from him. The rising debts, the TV and the fridge being repossessed, Dad's worsening health. Alfie felt he was always the last to know. Indeed, despite their closeness, there were plenty of chapters in Alfie's life that he kept from his father. The boy had his secrets too. That the bigger boys would bully him at school for dressing like a tramp. The detention Alfie received for not doing his homework when he'd been too busy cleaning the bungalow the night before and hadn't had time. When he was caught bunking off by the headmaster. Actually, he had had to leave school early to make it to the next town before the shops closed to collect a new wheel for his father's wheelchair. Alfie felt his dad had more than enough things to worry about without worrying about him too. But overhearing the conversation from the living room, try as he might not to, the boy finally had to give in to his tears. He was a Griffith too, strong and proud, but his tears had beaten him. Warm, salty drops ran down the boy's face. Despite everything, Alfie had always believed that one day his dad would get better. Now he had to face the truth. Chapter 8. Teat. Alfie, called Dad from the living room, what about that biscuit for our new friend Winnie? Hastily, Alfie tiptoed back across the hall to the kitchen and busied himself there. He had heard something he was never meant to hear, and now he had to hide it. I'll go and check on him, Mr. Griffith, announced the lady. By the way, Winnie, it's Griffith, said Dad. That's what I said, corrected Winnie. Griffith. She thundered down the hallway. Alfie didn't want this stranger to see him cry. He hated anyone seeing him upset. Growing up without a mum, Alfie's life had been touched with more sadness than most children's. As a result, he had learned to hide his feelings, to bury them somewhere deep within where no one could see. His heart was a fortress. Alfie hastily dabbed his eyes with the sleeve of his blazer before attempting to wipe away the tears that had run down to the end of his nose. Now, young Alfred, have you found any more biscuits? Inquired Winnie. The boy had his back to her and didn't turn around. He hoped that in a few more moments all trace of his tears would be gone, and his red and blotchy face would have returned to normal. Winnie could sense something was wrong. Alfred? Alfred? Are you all right, young man? The boy hastily grabbed the snatched-up old biscuit tin from the larder. Still not turning his face, he passed it over roughly. There you go. Eat the last one, why don't you? Winnie slowly shook her head. Then her eyes were drawn to the mountain of letters on top of the larder behind Alfie. And what are all these? she asked. All what? Replied the boy. Alfie turned round and, in a panic, realised that she meant all the dental appointment letters that he'd been hiding from his father over the past few years. That's just rubbish, he lied. Well, if it's just rubbish, let me help you put it in the bin. Winnie was a wise old bird. She reached up her hand to grab the letters. Before Alfie could say anything, her eyes started flickering through the pages. Soon his secret was out. Well, who would have thought it? They're all letters from the dentist. Oh dear, Alfred, you haven't been for years, proclaimed the social worker. Now, I know a lot of children under my care are scared of the dentist, but trust me. Alfie snatched the letters out of her hand. Stop poking your nose where it doesn't belong, he barked. I love my dad and I look after him better than anyone else could, better than you. Better than anyone. So why don't you just walk out that door and never come back? Just leave us alone. Winnie looked at Alfie, waiting for his white-hot anger to cool. Slowly her head tilted to one side. In her job as a social worker, she had met many troubled children over the years, but none quite as spirited as this boy. She took a breath before saying, Please, Alfred, believe me. I am here to help you and your dad. I know it's not going to be easy for you to accept that. I know you probably hate me right now. The boy's silence was telling. But who knows, Alfred? In time you may come to like me. One day we might even be friends. Alfie scoffed at the thought. Now, young man, why don't we sit down and have a little talk? The boy couldn't control his rage at this woman any longer. There's nothing to talk to you about, he shouted before pushing past her out of the cramped kitchen. As he dashed along the hallway to his bedroom, Winnie called after him. Please, Alfred, she implored, but the boy simply ignored her, slammed his bedroom door shut behind him and locked it. Alfie slumped down on his bed. He shut his eyes tight in frustration. Just then he heard a gentle tapping on the door. Tap, tap, tap. Even the way she knocked on the door was annoying to him. Alfred, she whispered, it's Winnie. Alfred said nothing. Just to say, I'm off now, said Winnie, pretending nothing was wrong. But I will call the dentist first thing tomorrow morning about your teeth. I've heard a very nice lady's just taken over by the name of Miss Root. Bye-bye. Alfie gulped. Not Miss Root. Anyone but Miss Root. Chapter 9. Tell no one. The next morning at school, Alfie opened his locker to find a note that had been slipped under the door. It had been made from letters cut out of a newspaper, and there was no name at the bottom. Boiler room, lunchtime, tell no one. The boiler room was deep within the vaults of the school. It was strictly out of bounds to all children. Alfie looked behind him to check no one saw him as he peeked down the spiral staircase that led to it from the playground. Keep out, read the sign. Slowly, Alfie turned the handle and pushed open the heavy door. It creaked. It was dark inside, and the hiss and gurgle of the giant boiler was so loud no one upstairs could hear you, not even if you screamed. Realizing this suddenly, Alfie felt a shadow of fear passing over him. He was afraid. Perhaps being lured down here was some kind of trap. From behind the boiler stepped out a figure, a short figure with dreadlocks. Gabs, said Alfie as he breathed a sigh of relief. Why are we meeting down here? We could get into big trouble if a teacher found us. Keep your voice down, hushed the girl. You don't know who could be listening. Now quickly, wedge that old blackboard up against the door so no one can come in. Alfie did what he was told. Gabs double-checked the door was secure and then rolled out a huge piece of paper she was carrying onto the damp and dirty floor. They knelt down to study it. Soon Alfie realised that this was a giant map of the town. Gabs had drawn it in some detail and had written notes in coloured pens by certain homes. Urgently she pointed out places on the map as she spoke. 2 weeks ago, November the 10th, Jack Brown, a wasp nest. November the 12th, Lily Candy, cat poo. Same night, Eddie Larter, a dirty old veruca sock. Alfie was bemused. What is all this? He asked. November 13th, a Friday. That was a busy night. crisscrossed all over town. Rian Skinner, a dead adder. Twin sisters, Jessie and Nell Godwin, a giant scab, origin unknown. Might not have been human. Hardeep Singh, flying ants' eggs. Woke up to his bedroom buzzing with thousands of them. I don't understand, said Alfie. And last night it got me. My tooth fell out. Well, after I'd waggled it for weeks, so I put it under my pillow, as I always do. What do you think What do you think I woke up to find? I don't know. A bat's wing. No. Yes, still flapping. Must have just been ripped off, the poor beast. Alfie couldn't believe what he was hearing. The girl was gathering pace now. There was no stopping her. So I started asking around the school first thing this morning and realised it was happening all over town. Kids here, 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 and here, said Gabs as she pointed out a number of houses or flats on the map. They were all targeted last night, and the calling cards got worse, much worse. A badger's paw, a snail that had had its shell pulled off, hundreds of centipedes creeping and crawling under some poor girl's pillow, a filthy sticking plaster, sodden with pus. The boy couldn't help but shudder. That's disgusting. Whatever's happening, this is just the beginning. Who's doing this? Asked Alfie. The little girl shook her head. Her dreadlocks followed soon after. Nobody knows. None of the kids I've spoken to saw or heard a thing. First they knew of it was when they woke up in the morning expecting to find a shiny new coin. And you didn't see anything last night? Nothing, replied Gabs. I lock my bedroom door at night, and I live on the 17th floor of a block of flats. So tell me, how did they get in? Alfie thought for a moment. Well, they couldn't have done. They did, replied Gabs firmly. For a moment she looked lost in thought. Maybe they flew in. Alfie couldn't help but laugh. As far as he was concerned, the little girl's imagination was now running away with her. Come on, Gabs, that's impossible. Gabs looked at him. Nothing's impossible, Alfie. Still, he was not convinced. Maybe we should take this map to the headmaster. Now it was the girl's turn to laugh. Mr. Gray, she said in a mocking tone. He's useless. Besides, he allowed that demon of a dentist into the school. Alfie's mind was whirring now. You don't think Miss Root could be involved somehow? Gabs thought for a moment. No, how could she? All these different houses all over town in one night. It's just not possible for one person. No, I suppose not. But there is something very strange about her, said Gabs as she stared off into space. Whatever you do, don't try her mummy's toothpaste. It burns through stone. What? Asked the girl. This was a new piece of the puzzle. Yes, I dropped a tiny bit of it and it went right through the bridge. I threw it into the canal and it killed all the fish. Glad I wasn't stupid enough to take a tube, proclaimed Gabs. Alfie didn't like that one bit. Gabs, Miss Root made me take it. Whatever, the girl smiled. It was clear she enjoyed winding Alfie up. Look, between us, we've got a lot of evidence here, said Alfie. I say we forget the headmaster, go straight to the police. And I'm going to stop there. And we'll start again tomorrow with chapter 10, which is called Urgent Police Business. Now, don't forget, make sure you clean your teeth before you go to bed. Just check that your toothpaste isn't the mummy's brand.